The question of the day is, what music did you listen to as a teenager and how did you access it? The music that I listened to as a teenager was predominantly Motown music. It was the music that came out of the label that was created in a little house in Detroit, Michigan called Motown. And in a lot of ways, I feel like Motown was created just for me. Now, the reason why I say that is because Motown was officially born in 1960. And in 1960, I was 10 years old. At 10 years old, I was just at the right age where I was starting to really appreciate music, and I was looking at the older kids and I was wanting to dance and be a part of dance parties and just really getting into songs and lyrics. So in 1960, when Motown was born, here was a flood of beautiful Black performers, so talented, so beautiful, who were coming out of this Detroit, Michigan with this amazing music. And I, in 1960 at 10, was able to ride that wave, the Motown wave, from when I was 10 all the way through my teen years, all the way through adult. So that is why I say sometimes I feel like Motown was created just for me because it came at just the right time. And I am so happy that I was there to experience it. Now, the Motown artists, there were no Motown artists that I didn't like. There were some that I enjoyed more than others. Of course, the Supremes, the Miracles, Martha and the Vandellas, the Marvelettes, Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson. Oh my, I could go on and on. But there were so many artists that came out of there. And not only were these artists talented with amazing voices and musically talented, but they looked good when they hit the stage. It was such an honor. You felt so proud, at least I did, whenever I'd see them on the stage or on television. They just looked good. They presented well. And I understand we have Berry Gordy to give credit to for that, because he insisted that when these artists, his artists from Motown, hit the stage, they were going to represent and represent well. And that's just what they did. The guys, whether their outfits matched or not, it was all it was planned. If it didn't match, it was planned not to match. But they all looked so good and so unique. And they all were wearing things that you just couldn't go to your corner store and buy that. They had sequins and rhinestones and just colors and materials that came together that made it look so good. And their moves were so in sync with each other. It was just a beautiful sight to see. And the same for the women when they would step out in a cocktail dress or a full gown, hair done just so. Oh my goodness, there was nothing to do but just be proud and say, represent, sister, represent. They looked so beautiful and I was so proud of them. Now, I remember the first time the Supremes were on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I don't think until I was at least in college, I don't think I ever went to a live concert. So I just used to see them whenever they would be on television. And other than that, we accessed the music with records. So on Saturday afternoons, if me and my sister had a dollar or two, we'd go down to the record store in downtown Greensboro. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was called the Record Shop. And it was a little skinny, about as wide as a small bathroom. And it was kind of long. It was very hard for two people to pass in that store. And you'd go to the back and you'd tell the guy there what record you wanted. Or you could ask him what are some of the latest hits, what's on the charts. And he was able to have that conversation with you. And then you'd walk away with your 45. Now, the 45 was a single, as opposed to the big albums that had like at least 5 or sometimes 6 records on one side, and you flip it and there'd be another 5 or 6 records. The 45 was a single, usually had a hit on one side and a record that was not so much a hit on the other side. Now, what was exciting for the artists and for us who bought the 45s was those certain times when they weren't expecting the flip side to be a hit too. So then you'd get a hit on both sides. That was rare, but there were occasions where that happened. So, but we just wanted that single. For me, the most part, I never really wanted, as a teenager, we never really wanted the whole album, because there was really just one, maybe two songs that we would just wanted to hear over and over and over again. So to save money, instead of buying the whole album, we just buy that one single. Now, what was heartbreaking was sometimes you would get that single home and somebody had been messing with the record player and you could not find your adapter. You needed an adapter on the record player because the spindle was this real skinny little silver pole that would play the long playing records, but for the 45s you needed an adapter because the hole was much bigger. And so sometimes you just couldn't find your adapter, and so you would just have to wait till the next time the store is open and you could go back and get your adapter before you could play your 45. The record player was the only thing that I can say that in my household growing up we ever had more of. We had more than one of them at one time. That was the only thing in my house we ever had more than one of it at one time. And those were record players. And that was because everybody in my family loved music. My father introduced me to people like Pearl Bailey, Nat King Cole, Dinah Washington, Louis Prima, Sammy Davis Jr. And so my father had quite a collection of long playing albums himself of these artists. My mother was mostly into gospel music, although she did love some of the Motown artists as well, but my mother was mostly into the gospel music. At some point during my teenage years, I remember the local TV station in Greensboro having what they call dance parties on certain afternoons after school. And so local high school students would gather at the TV station itself, and they would do a dance party, and they would let it go out live over the local TV station. I don't recall whether it was integrated or not, but I believe it was the forerunner, because there were things like this. The local dance parties on TV were happening in many cities across the country. And I believe it was the forerunner for shows like Soul Train and Dick Clark's American Bandstand, and all of those shows that were dance shows where you'd bring in an artist to perform live and or talk about their career, but it was mostly about the dancing. In high school, I don't remember a weekend where there wasn't a party somewhere. In the summertime, they were outdoor parties, and during the school season and the colder times, they were house parties or basement parties. And so people would gather at these parties, and it wasn't about the food. The food mostly consisted of potato chips and Kool-Aid. It was about the music. It was about getting together with your friends and listening to the music and dancing.